And I'm Duke's mom, and we have been a family with Hope Sparks for almost, 3 years now. So.
And I'm Sharon. I am one of the physical therapists at Hope Sparks, and I've had the honor and privilege of working with Duke and his wonderful family for almost 2.5 years. I think I started when Duke was around 8 months of age.
And I'm Sonia. I'm a speech pathologist with Hope Sparks, and I have been so overjoyed to be able to join the journey with Duke and his family from early on. I can't even count back all that. I got a chart here that tells me it's about 4 months.
Yeah, he came home from the hospital at 5 months, and then I think we started therapy at 6 months. So,
yeah,
just a little guy.
So, Bree, in part of the conversation right now, had wanted to talk about what were some of your expectations or thoughts, wonderings about early intervention. Just to lay it out, you had a really involved, complicated medical piece that had started off, going home, trying to sort through everything, getting a referral for early intervention.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about some of those first impressions and memories?
Yes. The first we ever heard about early intervention was when Duke was still in the hospital, and I knew nothing about what it was, what it meant, what we were getting ourselves into, what the road was ahead of us, because we were still really involved in this medical journey for him. We had a lot of intense medical things happening in those first 5 months in the hospital, and then we came home and he still had a lot of very intense medical needs that we were then thrust into learning this at-home care for our little baby that had a central line and a feeding tube and all this stuff that we knew nothing about. And then on top of that, the talk about early intervention, and I didn't know what that meant, where we'd be going for that, how it was all going to play into our daily life and meet his needs. So it was all brand new right from the start.
So you had no expectations really of what it would even do for you, right?
No, I mean, I think we were kind of flying by the seat of our pants in a way from early on, because we didn't know what the outcome was going to be across the board for him. We kind of drew our expectations back and just thought that we're going to take everything one day at a time, and his medical team is suggesting that this is something that would benefit him. We didn't know how, but we were going to be all into it and just go forward and put all of our effort into this early intervention, whatever that meant. And we were just kind of put our faith into that and let you guys guide us into what we needed to do for him and how we support him and his specific needs.
Can you tell us a little bit about what were some of Duke's needs?
Yeah. Duke I'll give you just a brief history for him. He was born at 25 weeks. He was 1 pound, 15 ounces when he was born. And of all the major complications that preemies can potentially face, he faced a lot of them. He checked a lot of those boxes as far as like premature lungs, so a lot of respiratory support. He had a grade 4 brain bleed, which was very significant. He started out with a bowel perforation that led him into his first surgery, and then he later developed necrotizing enterocolitis, which then led to 4 more major surgeries on his gut. He had more than half of his small intestine removed. He now has short gut. Those were the major things that we were dealing with in the hospital, and those kind of led us to what his needs were coming home. He needed nutritional support because he couldn't absorb nutrients. He had a G tube, but his intestines were removed, so his body couldn't absorb the nutrients on his own. So he had a central line, and he was on IV nutrition at home. And then because of his brain bleed, the fact that he was on respiratory support for so long, he wasn't able to eat anything by mouth for all that time in the hospital. He also was born so early that he didn't develop that natural ability to suck, swallow, breathe. So we had all of the combination of those factors leading to now we have this little boy who doesn't know how to eat by mouth. So he had a lot going on when we came home. And then also as far as his brain bleed, when he was diagnosed with that brain bleed, all they could really tell us was that it was severe, but they didn't know where or how it would affect him because they couldn't tell which part of the brain was affected. So we just had to wait and see how he developed and how that kind of progressed in him. And then as he's grown and developed, we've seen where that brain bleed has played out in his body, and we can touch more on that. But
I'm really struck, Bree, maybe for the first time with this nuance of having the difficulties and struggles in the hospital. It was a team that you were familiar with. It was a scene that you were familiar with, even with the hassle, if you will, of being up at Seattle Children's. It was providers that you knew and trusted. And so then to go home and maybe that really complicated struggle of we're home and we're grateful for it, and yet now we don't know this new team. And so a matter of relationships and fragility, medical fragility must have been, well, I don't want to put words in, but I'm just recognizing that additional trauma.
Yeah, that was difficult for sure. I mean, the word trauma really describes the whole first part of Duke's life for us. It was very traumatic, and we developed so much trust and faith in our team at Seattle Children's. They all supported us so well. And coming home, it was kind of this shock to the system of having to say goodbye to that safety net that we had, and coming home to now this new reality of like, okay, here we are at home and we have this medically fragile child that we need to learn how to take care of well. We have 2 other little boys that we need to take care of well also. And then now, because Duke has so many needs, we need to make it work to meet all of his medical needs, see all of his specialists, go to all of these appointments, and then start this early intervention, whatever that is, and have new people join the team and come to our home. And what does that look like? What's that going to be like for us? So it was a lot, for sure. Well, talking about what that's like, because I was thinking about, some of the struggles that we faced at home and how having you guys there and like Hope Sparks to support us, having him be such a medically complicated child. One of those things was he is immunocompromised. So when he gets sick, it really affects him across the board. It sets him back in his weight gain. And at the time we were really trying to gain weight to be able to work down on his TPN and move up on his feeds, and just a minor cold really set him back and disrupted the flow of it all. So one thing that I found was so helpful to us was being able to have you guys come to our home and us not have to go out to another appointment. Because especially in those early years and early weeks that he came home, we were going to Seattle Children's at least once a week, sometimes 2 times or 3 times a week for his different specialists. And so that thought was really daunting to me at first of like, okay, how do I get to the GI appointments and the nephrology appointments and do this physical therapy and this feeding therapy? How do I make it all work? How do I get to all these appointments? But you guys came to us, which was helpful. And also it just limited his exposure to germs and going different places, which was a real factor and a real anxiety for me, taking him places. So that was something that really helped us, that I'm very grateful for. And then I mentioned also that we have 2 other boys. And when Duke was born, they were 4 and 3. And so this was a big adjustment for them. But then them being home and their schedules, their school schedules, and that was something that meant a lot to us as well, is that you guys were able to work with us like around our family needs. And like so many times I remember like Sonia, you coming and me being like, I'm picking up Max from preschool, I'll be there in 2 minutes, and just like being able to really work around like our real life and our other kids, and that you guys were able to bring them into Duke's therapy and make them feel like a part of it, which was so special to them because they felt like they got to be helpers, and you guys encouraged them. Both of you did. And so that was really special for our family as a whole, just to have Cruz and Max get to be the big brothers and be part of therapy and have a special relationship with you guys. So those are 2 things that really meant a lot to us.
One of my early memories of working with Duke when he was only that early, like 7, 8 months old, is we would work in Mom's bedroom.
Yeah.
On the floor, on the carpet. And the other boys would come, and we were hitting over blocks and, you know, having him start to roll and so forth. And Max and Cruz were very instrumental in being part of it, and they loved being part of it. And working in the home, I echo what you've said, Bree, in that it limited his exposure. It allowed you not to have to go to 2 more places, actually,
Yes.
you know, to get up in the car, take an immunocompromised, a hit on TPN, you know, all this. And for us to actually cut that hassle and took it away, you know, that actually was, because I've worked in both the medical outpatient centers as in another life and in the home intervention. And I just love how that has been such a blessing to families that I've been able to just take away that stress.
Yeah.
And I think in our biggest hope too, it really allows you to be more present and engaged without the anxieties and the worries. And how is my child going to perform now that we've done this huge drive, this huge hassle to a clinic or what have you? And so both being less worried simply from a germ standpoint, but also just more comfortable in your home and to be able to be engaged in all of the levels, as of course you are, but just comfortably so, I think is a...
Yeah, it's huge. It's a huge piece to it, I think. And like I think Sharon just said with the TPN, and that like we had multiple backpacks that were connected to him, and I had to wear his backpacks because he's like this big. And so it's a big deal to take him anywhere connected to all of his equipment and bring it, and just to have you guys come to us. And we had it, you know, it just helped to flow easier for us, for sure.
What do you think Duke has overcome, or some of the I know you talked about some of the struggles, but where is he now and where do you think he's grown, and how he's grown in the therapies and in his life with the support you've had from Hope Sparks?
Yeah, I mean, Duke is just a little superhero. He loves life. Early on, one of our friends, when they came to meet him, he was still a baby, but he looked at him and he said, wow, you can just tell he loves to be alive. And like, that's the best way you can describe him. He loves life, and he is just so happy, and he loves to play with his brothers, and he loves to keep up with them and do all the things that they do. And he loves to tell stories, and he loves to just imagine, to watch his imagination kind of flourish and take over. We laugh because he has conversations with himself. Like he'll be playing and like he's talking on one side and then the other, like with his toys, and like just to watch his little brain develop to this point is there's not a word that can even describe it. It's amazing just to watch where he's come from. He's went through so much at such an early age. He had a really rough start, and we didn't know what to expect or what life was going to look like for him. But he's just a little 3-year-old boy and living life and experiencing and exploring the world. And he's made so much progress in, I think, all areas of his development and his motor skills. To see him, his brain bleed, we saw that it really affected the left side of his body. The left side is delayed, and he has some spasticity on that left side. But Sharon and I really worked hard. Our goal was that if you didn't know what you were looking for, you wouldn't be able to tell. And truly, that's kind of where he is now. He does things his own way. He has when he runs, he holds his left arm up like this, but it's just kind of like his power stance in a way. But he really, there's nothing he can't do physically. Like, he can climb all the rocks and the banks in our yard after his brothers. He climbs on things that I don't want him to climb on. He jumps off of things I don't want him to jump off of. He rides his bike, his little tricycle, and his motorcycle. The boys, their game lately has been Baby Godzilla, and they want Duke to ride his little motorcycle and chase them and crash into them, and they all just have a blast doing it. But then watching his speech come along, that's another one that just blows us away, that he talks in paragraphs. He tells stories. He will just, when we would get on our Zoom meetings for therapy, like the first part of the sessions with you guys was just Duke telling you a story about everything that happened over the last week, and like just letting him talk in full detail. And the words that he comes up with lately, he's been saying, "I have an idea," and then he'll tell us whatever that idea is, or actually, and he blows us away with the way that he talks. And his feeding, his eating, he has made a lot of progress there as well. And like, one of the things I'm so grateful for is Sonia's support there, and not just for Duke, but for Matt and I as his parents, because it's really, really hard to have a child who can't eat. It's a natural thing that I think we all take for granted, that you're able to eat and drink and go about your daily life. And like, I think back to when Cruz and Max were learning to eat, and how we went through the natural progression of that, and starting with solids, and then, you take it for granted to then have this baby who can't do that. And I got very discouraged a lot of times along the way, and I had a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, because I held on so tightly for so long trying to protect him, when I would grasp on to the little things I could do to protect him, because there was so much I couldn't do in those early days. It was out of my control. I just had to let the doctors do it. So then when it came to eating, I had all this fear and anxiety that I kind of brought to the table. And Sonia really helped me to work through that. And she was always there to point out the positives and be like, yeah, but look at the big picture. Look how far he's come from when we started. Okay, yeah, you're right. Like, he can eat a goldfish cracker now. Like, just one at a time, but he can eat one and do pretty great with it. And so the fact now that we're to this point with him, that we have a lot of work still to do, but we can sit down to dinner as a family. Everybody can have their plates. Duke has his own plate or his own bowl, and he can sit there and feed himself and like join in on the meal and kind of like carry on. And you can just tell for him, like, he feels good that he's part of the normal family stuff, that he's at the table eating also. And so he's just come a long way across the board.
You know what's been really exciting to witness over these last months is the shift in balance from most much of memories and experience and efforts are really centered around medical and care and recovery and the rest of it, to just being able to have a conversation and participate in hearing about all of the family things that you guys are doing.
Yeah.
You are vacationing and you are having picnics and you are doing family things. And so to have like that be the theme of the memories and the experiences that you're making right now is really, really wonderful to see.
Yeah, I agree, for sure. I feel that Hope Sparks literally gave us hope in a situation that we didn't know. We were so lost because we weren't prepared for any of it. We didn't know this was coming. We didn't know what lied ahead. I've told you this before, but it's just a great example of just our mindset going into it all. When the day that Duke was diagnosed with his brain bleed, it was devastating, completely devastating. And I remember sitting in his room and I was crying, and his nurse was in there, and I said, I just want him to have a good life. And she said, he will have a good life because he has you. And you can just support him and do everything you need to do to give him all the opportunities. And she talked about the research that is behind what environment kids come home to and the therapies that they get and how much that can help them. And so from that point on, we just knew that we were going to dive into whatever opportunities there were for him and just move forward in that. And so when his medical team started talking about early intervention and Hope Sparks, I just knew that, like, okay, we're going to trust this process and we're just going to give it everything that we have. And so having this little baby that we didn't know if he would be able to walk or if he would be able to talk or if he would ever be able to eat that one goldfish cracker, like we just knew that we wanted to trust everything that you guys brought, because we knew that you were going to help us, not just Duke, but help our family get through this tough road that was ahead of us. And I'm so thankful to Hope Sparks because I don't know, I've told you both that I don't know where we would be without you, because you don't know what to do in this situation. Nothing about it was normal or typical. And just to have guidance to say, okay, this is what we need to focus on today. Like, this is what we're going to do to get him to be able to roll to this direction, or this is what we're going to do today to get him to be able to work on his motor in his mouth, to like be able to suck on the straw, or like just to be able to point out those little tiny things that could help get him down the path. We owe a lot to you guys and to Hope Sparks, and seeing him love life like I talked about, and run around and eat and play and talk and talk and talk and talk. Like, we owe you guys. We owe you everything. So I can't thank you enough.
Well, the honor has been ours.
Thank you for the conversation. It's always a sweet, sweet moment to be able to relive and think about these successes.
Yeah.
So